Leveraging your full existence is not an easy task. It comes with the ability to harness the gift of being persistent, patient, and a willful desire to make a contribution to life. These same ingredients are needed to pursue a fruitful lifestyle. But then, there are many schools of thought which tend to speak against such conscious living. There are arguments literally made to promote meaningless living. In this lecture, we are going to investigate three of them, namely skepticism, postmodernism, and nihilism. The undertaking of this lecture is not to discuss 1. What your parents or culture have taught you, 2. Religious anthropology, 3. Religious sociology. What we will be investigating is how arguments made against being or existence can be detrimental or progressive, and how we can orient ourselves in a more thriving manner. The fundamental understanding of believing in a supreme creator is to believe that existence is meaningful. If one believes in a supreme creator and don't believe in leading a meaningful life, or worse, don't demonstrate a life of meaning, one is being pulled around by conflicting philosophies and living by what psychologists refer to as an existential crisis, and philosophers, existentialism. Philosophers Soren Kierkegaard, Dostoevsky, Jean-Paul Sartre, and Friedrich Nietzsche have published works that scholars consider to be existentialist. It was Jean-Paul Sartre who eventually popularized the term existentialism in the 1940s. It was not until years later psychologists who defined the scenario as an existential crisis, which literally means a meaningless life. Existential crises are moments when individuals question whether their lives have meaning, purpose, or value. It may be commonly, but not necessarily, tied to depression or inevitably negative speculations on purpose in life. Example, if I will be forgotten eventually someday, what is the point of all my work? This issue of the meaning and purpose of human existence is a major focus of the philosophical tradition of existentialism. It is a tradition of objective inquiry that takes as its starting point the experience of the human subject, not merely the thinking subject, but the acting, feeling, and living human individual. Soren Kierkegaard is generally considered to have been the first existentialist philosopher. Though he did not use the term existentialism, he proposed that each individual, not society or religion, is solely responsible for giving meaning to life and living it passionately and sincerely, or even authentically. Existentialism became popular in the years following World War II, thanks to Jean-Paul Sartre, who read Martin Heidegger while being a prisoner of war. He strongly influenced many disciplines besides philosophy, including theology, drama, art, literature, and psychology. You ever wonder why people suffer with depression, aggression, and enjoy escaping reality by using mind-altering drugs? The answer to that question reinforced what Nietzsche said: "He who has a why to live can endure anyhow," and was experienced by Viktor Frankl in World War II when he was a prisoner for approximately 3 years in a Nazi concentration camp. Even in the worst crimes against humanity, Frankl was driven with the purpose of seeing his family again and reuniting with his wife. And this desire kept him amidst suffering. He was motivated to use his independent will to wrestle daily with the most brutal and barbaric living conditions of the concentration camp. In the book he wrote as a result of that experience, Man's Search for Meaning, he said, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." He came to the realization that men without a strong enough conviction to live couldn't bear the harshness of their immediate reality. So history accounted that they would drop down and die daily. With this observation, Victor found another reason to live, another why to give meaning to his suffering. As a therapist, he started helping prisoners find a good enough reason to suffer, because life at the time was heavily dictated by the tenacity one had to endure suffering and the ability to still move forward. Friedrich Nietzsche also characterized life in general in this process. He said, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find meaning in suffering." Most people experience anxiety, depression, and stress at some point in their lives. For many, these emotions are short-term and don't interfere too much with their quality of life. But for others, negative emotions can lead to deep despair, causing one to question their place in life. This, in its chronic stage, is what an existential crisis is: a meaningless life. When people think life is meaningless, they tend to undergo more intense suffering, caused by the conditions in life and a harsh judgment on being. This relationship of internal and external conflict causes psychological damage, which leads to undesirable behaviors which affects the individual, the family, the community, and eventually has the ripple effect on the entire global society. This problem took rise in the 20th century, giving birth to humanistic psychologists like Abraham Maslow, Carl Rogers, and Rollo May. This psychological perspective helps the human gain the belief that all people are inherently good. It adopts a holistic approach to human existence and pays a special attention to such phenomena as creativity, free will, and positive human potential. It encourages viewing ourselves as a whole person, greater than the sum of our parts, and encourages self-exploration rather than the study of behavior in other people. Humanistic psychology acknowledges spiritual aspiration as an integral part of the psyche. It is linked to the emerging field of transpersonal psychology. Primarily, this type of therapy encourages a self-awareness and mindfulness that helps the human change their state of mind and behavior from one set of reactions to a healthier one, with more productive self-awareness and thoughtful actions. Essentially, this approach allows the merging of mindfulness and behavioral therapy with positive social support. We can rationalize that humanistic psychology was a response or solution to the existential crisis, or a meaningless life. Abraham Maslow, one of the prominent doctors in the humanistic field of psychology, was quoted saying, "Musicians must make music, artists must paint, poets must write, if they are to be ultimately at peace with themselves. What a human being can be, they must be. They must be true to their own nature." This state of being we may call self-actualization. It signifies man's conquest of the desire for self-fulfillment, namely, the tendency for him to become actually what he is potentially. But there are three schools of thought which rationalize that life is meaningless. They are skepticism, postmodernism, and nihilism. They argue the relativity and lack of objectivity while totally giving all attention to subjectivity, wandering in an empty place of infinite regress. The whole description of the three sounded depressing, because it is. Living life by these schools of thought takes away the beauty of human life, which is to aim, to reach for transcendental value. They run very deep with multiple variations throughout time. So for the purpose of this video, I will try my best to summarize them. First school of thought is skepticism. The idea of skepticism can be found in the movie The Matrix, which was motivated by the works of 17th century mathematician named René Descartes, who became famous for saying, "Cogito ergo sum." I think, therefore I am. He believed in disbelieving everything, because of the lack of knowledge to know, how to know, and what to know. This is the basis of skepticism. The second school of thought, nihilism. What does nihilism mean? Friedrich Nietzsche asked. It is the fact that the highest value devaluate themselves. The aim is lacking. Why finds no answer. This was his response in one of his famous passages. The concept of nihilism is thousands of years old. The word became popular in the mid 19th century by the Russian author Ivan Turgenev. He was an instrument used to bring people to the awareness of such a way of life when he wrote in his book, "A nihilist is a man who does not bow down to authority, who does not take any principle on faith." Nietzsche simplified the meaning of nihilism in his book The Will to Power in this format. Nihilism, the radical repudiation of value, meaning, and desirability. A nihilist believes nothing matters and everything is pointless. Even life receives that major reductionism into being pointless. The third school of thought is postmodernism. Postmodernism, for the purpose of this lecture, will be summarized. It means that there is no objective truth. Everything is subjective and relative. It is necessary to understand these schools of thought, since knowingly and unknowingly they are incorporated in our educational and political system and have been a contributing factor to the way we live our lives. Living a meaningless life is a foundation that not believing in a supreme being is predicated upon. So if we don't understand these schools of thought, which is used to battle existence and being, we will be saying one thing with our mouth and doing something completely opposite in our daily lives. To live a life of meaning is to have a purpose. Having a purpose justifies existence, and it is defined by having an aim or a goal. Attaining the goal is critical, but what is more important is the holistic mental transformation that one needs to undergo to become the person worthy of and able to attain such goals. This is the desire that all human beings inherently possesses, although sometimes not articulated. The paradigm shift one needs to undergo to become the person worthy of such a goal is what human beings desire unconsciously. You can investigate this by doing some self-analysis. Remember the last time you set a goal and achieved it? Like completing university, buying your first car, etc. The minute you achieve it, you quickly set another goal. And that is the characteristics of human beings. Human beings need 6 things to occupy their time meaningfully. The first one, we need to know our contribution in life. The second one, we need family and friends. The third one, a schedule. Fourth, we need a mate. We need educational goals. And the last one, we need time from work. Being a healthy human being is having success in at least 3 of them. The phrase "I believe in God" literally means that life is meaningful. The opposite of that speaks volume to the fact people say one thing, then act another way. Like people can say, "I believe in God," but they live a meaningless life. A life rid of meaning engenders negative emotions, like depression, anxiety, and aggression. These negative emotional states are just signposts to tell you that something is wrong and needs fixing. Instead of being afraid of these emotions, we need to investigate them and try to orient ourselves in a way that is complementary to life. It was Charles Darwin who said, "You can't define truth in any other way than that which serves life." Nietzsche echoed that same idea in summary when he said, "Truth serves life." If you pay close enough attention to life, you will realize the simple and yet profound fact about life, which is it was given to thrive, to become the best it can possibly become. While investigating different authors, namely Eckhart Tolle, Viktor Frankl, Carl Jung, Dale Carnegie, and many others, I saw a pattern. Something remained constant. I was told that as long as it is not in scriptures, it is not the truth. So I went to search that instrument as well. The interesting thing about it is that it was said many times, but only when someone was quoting Christ. Understanding that life was made to thrive. There are practical, applicable principles which, when applied to life, thriving is inevitable. This stuck with me. When persons don't apply these principles, they fall prey to what psychologists calls existential crisis, which means to live a life with no meaning. having no justification for existence or being. They end up living what philosopher David Wiggins and his contemporaries called animalism, or the animalistic perspective of life, which is characterized by the sole motive to eat, sleep, mate, and survive through defense mechanisms.